Hey there, Mr. Tyre here, high school history teacher. Welcome back to another History Teacher X video. All right, channel favorite BlueJay is back. This one's called Wacky War Tactics in Yet Another Nutshell. Now, the series has been fantastic. It's been fun to learn about some of these wacky things that we've seen in warfare. So I'm excited to check it out and let you know what I think. All right, if you are watching this today, Monday, December 16th, 2024, then come back to my channel later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern for episode 2 of History Showdown. That's my history game show that puts together your favorite history YouTubers competing in a fun trivia competition. And tonight's episode is with Kings and Generals, History Dose, and Emperor Tiger Star. So 3 big guys when it comes to world history. I'm going to link the stream down below. And if you didn't see episode 1, make sure you check that one out. That one had Mr. Beat, cynical historian and drawn of history. We had a ton of fun and I'm definitely looking forward to episode 2. All right, original video link is down below. Please support BlueJay, please. And let's get started. All right, it's war tactics, so I think I need to get ready. Let's put the helmet on. Much safer now. His writing just keeps getting so good and the acting.
Hey there, champ. How's it going?
I love BlueJay.
Not great. We're in an active war zone, if you couldn't tell. Tell me about it. These Uber delivery
World
fees
War
are
I?
basically war crimes. And I would know. Say, do you guys have Qdoba yet? Oh, I don't have time
Gallipoli?
for this. I gotta get out of here before the Australians finish me off. What are you talking about? There's no one over there. What? Then who shot me? Oh, that? That would be a can of piss.
What?
What? It's late 1915. World War I is ramping up intensity, and Anzac forces are not feeling the whole great part of the Great War. 80,000 of them are cornered in Gallipoli, the Ottomans ready to finish them officially, and their only hope to survive was to evacuate expeditiously. But there was one...
All right, so the story for Gallipoli, why that is a deal. The British want to be able to take the Strait of Gallipoli and up through the Dardanelles by where Istanbul is, so they can make a connection to open up between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. That way they can move and like interact with the Russians. They can maybe resupply the Russians. And famously, the British used their colonies in their colonial forces in the army. Famously, at Gallipoli there, they used their forces from Australia as well as New Zealand who did a big chunk of the fighting. And this Battle of Gallipoli is a big kind of a memory, a big moment in history for those countries.
Glaring issue with the retreat. If the Ottomans were to notice, it was predicted they would send up to 30,000 men from the land down under to the land down 6 feet under. So they came up with a nifty plan to pull off this miracle evacuation.
Britain
What if they were
used a lot of their colonial forces.
By not doing
India was
so,
a big one too.
Or more specifically, convince the Ottomans that they were still having a grand old time playing in their trenches, all whilst actually scurrying to their comfy metal floats. To help pull off this ghost army masquerade was the wondrous drip rifle. Not that kind. Essentially working...
Wait, let me go back to it. It's got all the drip in it.
This ghost army masquerade was the wondrous drip rifle.
It's got Gucci, it's got like the chains on, Louis Vuitton, the Supreme thing. I don't see as many of my students wearing the Supreme stuff. Is that over?
Not that kind. Essentially working from home, but without the Clash of Clans in your underwear part, a drip rifle was a gun that was rigged with a delayed firing mechanism consisting of 2 cans and a bit of string. The top can would be filled with water and slowly drip into the bottom one until Isaac Newton took the wheel and pulled the trigger with a nerd magic of gravity. However,
he invented gravity.
The fact that fresh water was rather scarce for Anzacs in Gallipoli, there's a non-zero chance that some of these cans were given the old golden shower treatment to operate, making it undoubtedly some of the finest work ever graced by Australian hands, other than yours truly. Therefore, after the rear guard set up a bunch of these with dummies and smoked a platoon's worth of cigarettes each to make the trenches appear full of men, or trains, they were able to safely evacuate with remote gunfire masking their withdrawal from the Ottomans, who were none the wiser. But anyway,
there were a lot of booby traps in trenches. You know, trench warfare was kind of expected. Not that you wanted to, but it was expected that you might lose a trench, right? And there's a series of trenches. You can fall back into ones that are behind you. You hope to make trenches in front of you. Think of it like a ladder. And with trench warfare, war is kind of done on this ladder. And people move up, they move back, and you try to decide when is it time to retreat, when is it time to actually try to advance. And that was, of course, very difficult because of things like the machine gun. But you would booby trap those. You can, because especially if you were going to be like retreating, the other enemy is going to be in your trench. So they used to leave stuff, traps, bombs, mines, like stuff like this, to be able to, maybe take some of them out, your enemy out, while you are retreating out of your trench.
Anyway, that is a Tarantino amount of blood behind you, so one could say you're in for a bad time.
Oh.
Today we're learning about wacky war tactics, yet again.
Part 3 now, huh? BlueJay.
I watch you while you sleep. Or at least I could be with the new limited edition BlueJay figure. I just couldn't get my fix of breaking and entering last time, so I barged back into the U2's lab to cook up this dashing little scallywag. Complete with a tricorn hat, bandana, and cannon, this vinyl figure is perfect for all your whimsical pirate needs, and definitely does not contain a radio transmitter. It took a few prototypes to get right, finding the right orphan meat is hard after all, but nevertheless, we were able to come up with a stunning swashbuckling BlueJay to honor the channel's pirate phase earlier this year. U2's gave me complete creative input over not only the design of the figure, but the box design itself, meaning every crack, crevice, and vaguely threatening language was strategically crafted by yours truly. I didn't think they'd let me say this. Those wonderful U2 servants really went all out with this one, and it's honestly the second coolest thing I've ever received after your mom's number, but it's only available for a limited time, so if you want to complete your BlueJay U2's jar collection or send me even more videos of you torturing my merchandise, click the link in the description to snag yours before it's gone forever. And now, back to the video. Now, in my last installment, I talked about how the Persians defeated Egypt at Pelusium by using cats, a story with shaky reliability the others called me out on.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Have I seen that one with DJ Peach Cobbler? Wasn't it a little bit more lighthearted than like a big criticism, if I remember right?
A story with shaky reliability the others rightfully called me out on.
Okay.
That thumbnail was a joke, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I remember, it was just funny, clickbaity, I guess.
Since then, I've redoubled my efforts into verifying the accuracy of stories and disclosing.
Oh, the internet will correct you.
Can't be fully determined. Ancient history is always a blurry topic, after all. And while this first story takes place around the same time as the Battle of Pelusium, the tale of cat warfare was first reported 700 years after the fact, and only comes from a single source.
They were sacred to the Egyptians.
Today's story has two. Ancient China, the spring and autumn period, also known as history's first battle royale, with something like 1 to 200 states vying for power.
Warring States period. Do you see that one he pulled up really quickly there? The first one that pops up. Let me show you.
First battle royale with something like 1.
Stop there. They're the winners. They're going to win out. There's all those states, Warring States period. Qin. They're going to establish Qin dynasty, and they're going to unify China and become the basically the founders of the Emperor of China, coming out of the West there.
1 to 200
That's where China gets its name from,
including the Qi, or the fancy Qi, or the letter E. When they weren't competing for a name that sounded the most like a Pokemon with brain damage, they spent their time kickstarting many major philosophies, such as Confucianism to guide people on morality, or Taoism to guide hippies on their first tattoos.
Confucianism came in during this time period, and it's kind of well, so did Buddhism, by the way. They both came in from there, because Buddhism comes from India. Confucianism does come from China, but Confucianism was, with Confucius himself, was kind of trying to promote himself as an advisor, especially to those that rule, and to give advice to rulers. That's kind of what he was like. That's what he kind of sought after, was advice. Like, how do you run your society? How do you be a good ruler? Buddhism comes in and was a perfect time, actually, for people to sort of look towards Buddhism, because it promised ideas about afterlife and an ease of suffering at a time when China was actually very devastating for a lot of people because of centuries of warfare.
But above all, these Chinese states enjoyed their art, like war. The Art of War by Sun Tzu is potentially written during this period, a military text made famous for its revolutionary tactical advice like give your soldiers food and think before you move. This priceless knowledge was studied by Helu, the king of Wu, who utilized it along with the legendary man himself to squad up and wage wars, cranking 90s on his neighbors trying to clutch that dub. And the next stop on his way to a victory royale was his demure neighbor down south. I did it, but at what cost? Upon hearing of the death of its
the old
leader,
algorithm
Helu seized the opportunity to wage war on the state of Yue as it was transitioning to its new king, Goizhan. So with their crosshairs set, the state of Wu prepared for their invasion. Alright boys, before we go, let's just check our little manual here. Food. Make sure to bring food, guys. Genius. Of course. I love swallowing objects. And it looks like we need something called fire. Fire? What that? Oh, it like air, but when angry. Oh, yeah. Bad touch. Excellent. And we also
Fire's
need
angry
candy
air
for every soldier. Wait, this ink is fresh. Who wrote this? Maybe it's a new update. While being invaded by the local superpower with a military
Definitely
influence
another
by
war.
one of the most legendary generals of all time was a less than ideal way to celebrate a new promotion, Goijan was nonetheless determined to resist. But fighting such a renowned military required some cunning. It required some wit. It required a cutthroat mentality. Wait,
Yep.
that's it. Taking my advice a bit too
What'd they
literally,
do?
in one battle, Goijan, quote, sent 3 waves of convicted criminals toward the Wu front lines, where, with a great shout, they proceeded to cut their own throats. Now, different sources claim
What?
that there were actually soldiers willing to die
Why?
instead of criminals, but either way, the goal here, other than giving me content, was to leave the Wu forces stupefied and intimidated. However, I can see this plan easily backfire.
Yeah, no kidding. No. Aren't they going to be like, oh, they're like offing themselves because they're afraid of us?
However,
That's what I
I
would
can
think.
see this plan easily backfiring.
That's right! We're fucking crazy! You better surrender!
Holy shit, sir! I don't think I could fight
Did you
them.
hear
This
that?
is insane. Hold on, Corporal. Just hold on. What's a corporal? Oh my god, that's insane!
Haha, that it is!
Could you imagine how scary it would be if they did that again?
Exactly.
That's right! We're demented! B Squadron, show 'em!
Oh, the humanity! What eldritch horrors awaits if these demons were to descend upon us?
Horror indeed!
I just might surrender if they
Hopefully you
did
can hear
that
the
yet again.
noises.
Right! Fuck. Squadron C, show these men before the eyes of our gods what we're capable of!
Sweet
my
heavens! My men are truly cowering in fear!
As they should!
Now, if they were to show us yet another time, but unfortunately for them,
It's
the
okay,
didn't
so,
cover
like,
what to
I'm trying to think of like their perspective of trying this tactic. I mean, they're convicted criminals, it said, right? Maybe they were like, okay, we'll put them out on the front lines, but we don't really trust them. So we'll have them do this, I guess. Like that would be better because we think, I don't know, they might go crazy and like attack us or ruin the war. So like maybe we get something out of them.
do if the enemy soldiers fucking killed themselves. So when the UA forces launched a surprise attack from another direction, the stunned soldiers were promptly defeated. As with all ancient history, a certain amount of faith is required when learning about its
See,
stories.
people.
However, I'm more inclined to believe this tale, as its sources are often considered some of the most trustworthy in ancient history, and the tale is recounted by Sinology experts today. Cutting one's throat was
Okay.
a rather common way to commit suicide after all, and because death was viewed quite differently around this time, the soldiers may have believed their sacrifice would be rewarded in
Yeah.
the afterlife.
Right.
And if they had been criminals, some theorize their families may have been threatened to ensure their compliance. And not like run over to the other side. I spent a lot of
Right.
time tracking down, verifying, and independently translating various sources. Shout out to Kevin's dad. So if any YouTubers are looking to make some content, I hope they are satisfied with this disclosure. That was a joke, by the way. As for the defeated King Helu, he was
I promise I'm not going to do that, BlueJay. You've been very cool to me, so it's okay. I want to know if there's actual beef with him. I can't imagine. I hope not.
mortally wounded.
We don't need that
Battle
in the
of deep
community.
Throat cuts, but lived long enough to tell his son and soon-to-be king to never forget about Yue. And so, holding his dying father's hand, his son made a vow. He was never gonna give Yue up, never gonna let Yue down. Jumping forward 100 years, we have the Persian Empire at the top of their game.
Hey.
They've been balling around the peasants of the Fertile Crescent. and are now
Hey,
the
Emperor
largest
Tiger
empire by
Star. See this map there he's got? Emperor Tiger Star is going to be on tonight. If you on History Showdown, if you are not going to be able to come out tonight, or maybe watch this video later, watch the episode. We'll see. Maybe he'll win. Maybe win the show. Kings of Generals, History Dose, Emperor Tiger Star should be fun.
with the recovery of Egypt and Fertile Crescent, and are now the largest empire by any assessment. With the recovery of Egypt, an economy full of riches, the future was looking bright for little old Persia's business. So long as a Greek boy with a city naming habit doesn't come along.
Yep.
It's 334 BC, and the
A lot of
Persian Empire
Alexandrias.
is being invaded by a man so legendary, so monumental, that his world-altering conquest and exploits would forever land him with the name Alexander the Great. That is, unless you subscribe to my theory. Yeah, I don't know.
What?
He's weirdly close with that cavalry commander. Probably not the only saddle he's riding. Call me crazy, but I just don't think Alexander is straight. What was that?
They were just really good friends, okay?
Alexander is great. What's going on over here, babe? Alex. Ah, Hephaestion. Finished getting that city named after me? Which
Hephaestion,
one?
yeah.
Alexandria, or Alexandria?
Yep.
Alexandria. Oh, yes. Paperwork's been submitted. Excellent.
So that was something they did. So they would conquer Persian places and set up cities and name them Alexandria. My favorite, though, that he named was Bucephala, which was named after his horse, Bucephalus, the mythical horse that nobody could tame, and he did. I thought that was way cooler. But just so you know, 99% of the time when someone says Alexandria, they're talking about the Egypt one.
Oh, hey, Alexander the Great. Make sure to write that one down. A few years in, and Alexander's been slapping around Darius pretty good. And after taking over modern-day Turkey, it was time to plan their next move. All right, that was a great victory. Now for diplomacy. Go further east. That's a fantastic idea. No, sir, should we not engage the Persians in negotiations so as to not overextend ourselves and risk hemorrhaging our forces against the largest empire known to man?
Nope, didn't matter.
Sweet
They still
Clytius.
won.
No. Alexander was determined to push further east, conquering the whole of Persia. But first, he knew he had to secure his supply lines from the danger of the Persian navy, making him the second military mastermind in history to uncover the divine wisdom, soldier need food. And to achieve this security and control the Mediterranean, the city of Tyre needed to fall.
Well, yeah, and then on the way, eventually they get Egypt. So after they take Tyre, instead of going right to the heart of the empire with like Baghdad or Persepolis that would have taken them east, they actually went down to Egypt. Another big reason was food. Egypt's a bread basket, so they take it over.
There was just one small problem with that, though. All right, Tyre should be
It's
right
a walled
around here.
city.
Oh.
And an island.
Looks like it's an island, sir. But what if it wasn't?
Today,
What?
yeah,
He
they
had strong
make a
enough navy
bridge.
of his own. Alexander decided that peninsulas were in fashion and
Yeah.
ordered his men to throw fuckloads of rocks in the water.
Today
to build
it's
a
like that.
land bridge all the way to the fortified island of Tyre.
Still like
However,
that
this
today.
would be no easy project.
It's not an
the
island.
island was supported by a navy, surrounded by lofty walls, and was a whole kilometer off the coast. But impregnable wasn't a word Alexander liked hearing. This will be a monumental task, not to mention the city is near impregnable. Hey, I have no problem impregnating. I'm the king of Macedonia after all. Right. So anyway, if we want this to work, we're gonna have to figure out how to get it up. Who told you that? That was one time, Clytius. Is Mary running that bitch mouth again? No, sir, I'm sorry. Please, don't be too hard on me. I have no problem getting hard. Call him Alexander Deflate. What was that? I said you're Alexander the Great. You have a magnificent cock, sir. Now, chucking enough rocks in the ocean.
All right, just getting right to the point. He does actually end up marrying a woman, Roxana. She was basically a Persian princess. But yep, that is a common thing that he was very close with that general. He dies. Hephaestion ends up, he dies later on. And it said that he went into a pretty bad, I think, depression, may have drank himself to death, leading to his death in his early 30s in Baghdad.
To build a causeway wide enough to shove multiple siege towers out towards our great lord Cthulhu is quite
They were
the
great
exhausting
siege.
task. But luckily for Alexander,
Siegers.
there were plenty of local hands perfectly capable of carrying rocks nearby, and they were just too excited to help. All that's needed now is a bountiful supply of rocks. Well, these aren't being used. The Tyrians saw
did they
them
use
toiling away,
houses?
planting rocks and sticks in the water, and decided to help out by supplying some of their own. And while I'm sure the gesture was appreciated, their aid had the unfortunate side effect of spray painting the bridge red. Alexander, not vibing with this design direction, built a palisade to protect the workers, along with 2 siege towers at the end of the bridge.
Still be scary.
However, the Tyrians, much like George Bush, were determined to destroy the 2 towers, so they stuffed a few ships with incendiary materials and crashed them
conspiracies?
into the structures, burning them to the ground. But Alexander was rather skeptical of this. Triremes can't melt wooden beams after all, so he decided to build yet another, even wider causeway from a second location on the mainland. And why shouldn't he? I mean, the volunteers are practically boiling with
You know what's interesting about Tyre too? I mean, it's an island out there. If you're able to take the mainland, the old city of Tyre, connected to the mainland, you don't even really need to go after that part of the city, the part that's out on the island, because like, if you control that area, you can pretty much just blockade them and starve them out. That they do have a navy kind of around there, but it's just going to be sitting out there as this island. But it showed you how aggressive Alexander was. And it was said that like Tyre could never fall. I mean, it was like prophesied and things. And maybe that was part of it. And again, it I mean, you're seeing what it's requiring here. Even if this was actually connected by land and they don't have to build a causeway, this still would have been very difficult because it was one of the most fortified cities that he's going to have to take and will take in his lifetime.
Excitement, after all. Surely he couldn't fail this time. We are talking about the mastermind that solved the Gordian knot. So this is the Gordian knot. It's impossible to untie. Oh, impossible,
Cut
you
it.
say? Yeah, it has to be.
Cut it.
It's holding a suspended load of concrete over an orphanage. So you're saying it'd take a true hero to untie it, huh? No, ideally it should not be messed with. Oh, sweet Jesus!
Yep, and cut it down.
Yeah,
Cheated.
Aristotle was my teacher. But a bridge wasn't going to be enough on its own. Alexander...
Was that true about the concrete thing? I know about the Gordian knot. I didn't look into it much.
And luckily for him, he had just captured a bunch of Phoenician cities with naval fleets just sitting around collecting dust when they could be collecting skulls. So he rounded them up and brought them to the island. The siege dragged on, the Macedonians slaving away with naval protection, while the Tyrians provided them some public theater with volunteers from the audience.
Oh,
Things would eventually come to an end when the Macedonians overwhelmed the Tyrians by attacking from both man-made land and sea. And finally, after the great Alexander gloriously conquered the city, cementing yet another story in his legacy that would sculpt the cultural transcending legend of a
that really was like a big legacy defining thing that had that. I mean, some of those early victories and was it Gracchus River, whatever, like his first one was impressive, but this one was the most impressive thing he had done thus far, and one of the most impressive that he ever does.
Magnificent man, he was able to stand tall atop his prize and sell the women and children to slavery, crucifying 2,000 of the few surviving men.
Ugh, Alexander was brutal.
Another epic victory for the OG. Who says that? It'll catch on, you'll see. Well, you won't see. You'll be very dead.
Oh, gosh.
Only the citizens...
You know, the ironic, I don't know if that's the right word. He really respected Persian culture, though. He wanted to blend the cultures. You know, when he would attack here, he would encourage, of course, Greeks to like move in. He encouraged assimilation into the culture. He wanted the Persian people to adopt Greek customs. He wanted the Greek people to adopt Persian customs, and then the Egyptian customs. And like he had done that. I mean, he was an educated person for his time. I'd like to think that some of that influence came from his childhood tutor, Aristotle, who taught him about all these cultures. But then you see the brutality of it. It's interesting. It's almost like a Genghis Khan type of thing.
Shelter and a temple were spared, including the king of Tyre himself. Only the citizens taking shelter in a temple were spared, including the king of Tyre himself. As for Alexander's 7-month rock stacking project, the remains of it are still visible, and centuries of sand accumulation have terraformed the island of Tyre into the peninsula of Tyre, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world that you could still visit to this day. Well, maybe hold off for now. We remember the Cold War as that funny half-century period where two halves of the world edged each other to see who would splooge plutonium first. Today we know both sides ended up being true long-lasting kings, the Brits in the 1950s weren't so sure and needed to develop some contingency plans in case the hammer and sickle came a-knockin'. But how does one stop the LeBron of steamrolling through Eastern Europe from doing just that? Well, luckily, the puzzle of keeping big groups of people out of big chunks of area while also assisting with hell's underpopulation problem had already been solved. Landmines. Only problem was, landmines were kind of lacking pizzazz. That was last decade's fashion after all. So how does one jazz up this concept with a taste of the 1950s trends?
Have you guys heard of the undetonated landmines problem that still exists in Europe, especially on like the eastern, what would be like the Eastern Front? You'll hear news every once in a while, you know, of one that it could go off. I mean, a lot of them are kind of like duds now, but they're very dangerous. When they do like foundation work, or they're digging up stuff for architecture, you know, whatever it is, they have to be very, very careful about that. And there's protocol, you know, if they come across something that looks like a mine, you know, they evacuate the neighborhood around it, and it's like a big deal. But yeah, like people die today from this unexploded landmine problem. I've covered, I think, some videos about it in the past. It's really interesting.
Introducing Operation Blue Peacock, which was renamed from Blue Bunny, which was renamed from Brown Bunny. Really doing everything they can to avoid a Warner Bros. Lawsuit. Blue Peacock was a project to develop a nuclear landmine with the goal of putting the first Soviet man into orbit. The plan was to bury a bunch of these in an area so uninhabitable and undesirable that nobody would mind to get destroyed and irradiated. You know, somewhere like Germany. This way, if the Soviets were to invade the Iron Curtain, their advance would be halted in their tracks with some atomic confetti.
This would have to be some like crazy scorched earth policy to make anything like that make sense. Meaning, scorched earth policy, you're gonna retreat, but you're gonna destroy everything that you're leaving and make it pretty much unusable, and in this way make it unlivable for anybody to come into. This seems like it would never be worth the risk versus reward factor. It would never be worth it. But holy crap, I've never heard of this story.
Enough radioactive fallout to prevent enemy occupation. This 10 kiloton nuke weighing 7,300 kilograms would be buried 35 feet deep and blast a crater 640 feet across. To help visualize, that is a bomb weighing 780,302.73
But how does it detonate?
with a 100 billion gumball yield,
Wow.
buried 420 gumballs deep and exploding a 7,680 gumball wide crater.
Thanks for doing that
With how
math.
big these puppies were, you weren't exactly able to litter a whole minefield with them, so they had to choose their locations very strategically. Alright?
I just don't think you want the option of your enemy getting a nuke, no matter how confident you are that you can control it. Okay, let's see the story here.
Lads, it was a good day one, but I'm thinking we set up supply depot before pushing on. This looks like a good spot, so let's...
Hey! A little more to the right!
Of course, these landmines couldn't be pressure activated, not unless we wanted some kid playing
it's not-
hopscotch to step on a crack and
That's what
break
I
the
mean.
sound barrier. So instead, they were designed to be detonated either by wire or by an 8-day timer. And to prevent anyone from being too nosy, it would also detonate if it was tampered with by any passing Russian soldier and or curious child.
Oh my
There was
gosh.
just one problem with this plan. With the bomb being 35 feet deep in German soil, cold winter temperatures would prevent the electronics from working properly. So those lab
Yeah.
boys back in the UK had to come up with an idea
There's some of these
so
around.
genius, so brilliant, that they could keep their bomb internals safely warm for 8 whole days in the field until detonation. Congratulations on your new appointment, Dr. Pekka. Our team couldn't have selected anyone better. I'm just happy to be given the opportunity. After 8 long years of higher education, I'm excited to finally be able to pay off my loans and provide for my wife and eggs
Yeah.
back home. The
All
job
those
market
college
is tough
grads.
for my kind, as you can imagine. Well, I can assure you we don't discriminate here at Fort Halstead. We only pick the best candidates for the job. I'm glad to hear that. So, where's my office? Oh, just right in here. The Brits' genius idea was to stuff a live chicken in a nuclear landmine to keep it warm with good old-fashioned body heat. They planned to give it enough food to prevent it from pecking at wires and keeping it alive for at least 8 days before it was sent to the Shadow Realm. Truly a device only conceivable by the West, as pumping a
Britain.
KFC meal full of the entire electromagnetic spectrum is nothing more than the final evolution of ultra-processed meats.
I'm gonna say, like, Britain, your food sucks so bad. Why are you, like, chicken's amazing. Why are you destroying your much improved food option?
So with 2 prototypes built and 10 orders in the horizon, all that was left was to put their
Really?
cockfield plan into motion. Yeah, so we'll just kind of spread them out around here. Ben, will this be a problem? Only if you're invested in local real estate.
Whoa. Oh my gosh.
No, they'll be quite dead. The Brits chickened out of the project once they remembered that nuclear fallout was famously unpredictable and could drift towards what I guess you could refer to as people. Blue Peacock was kept secret until it was declassified on April 1st, 2004, leading many to
gosh,
believe
yes.
that shoving a
God bless
Popeyes
the
combo in a
internet.
nuke had to be an April Fool's joke, to which the head of education at the National Archives responded, "The civil service does not do jokes." While
They have
trashing
no
a project that spent
discernible
4
sense
years
of
in
humor.
development sounds like a complete waste of time, they did find a way to salvage this at the end of the day. All that hard work designing and developing a wacky weapon prototype would end up fueling Britain's
How long
other
can it
favorite
last?
hobby, filling museum basements. Wacky
Oh, yeah,
War Tactics
pretty
Part
much.
3, 8.1452 out of 10 stars.
That's fair. Final thoughts. As always, fantastic job by BlueJay. Again, I hope to see a bunch of you tonight. If you, again, are watching this the day that I put out, come over to History Showdown. The link to the show will be linked down below. Bookmark that. And if you are watching this after December 16th, check out that anyways. And then come back and make sure you're following my channel, get notifications and all that. And you can come out and hang out in our live airings of our other shows that we got lined up for you. All right, with that, we'll see y'all next time.